The year 2025 began with a seismic shift. Donald Trump returned to the White House. His re-entry onto the global stage was not quiet. It was a thunderclap. The world braced for impact. Old certainties immediately began to crumble. New, unpredictable dynamics started to take shape. Trump's America First philosophy, once a campaign slogan, was now the explicit doctrine guiding the world's foremost superpower. This was not merely a change in administration, it signaled a potential restructuring of the post-Cold War international order. The implications were and remain profound for every nation. This renewed America First approach promised disruption. It delivered swiftly. Traditional diplomatic channels found themselves bypassed. Long-standing alliances were openly questioned. The early months of the Trump presidency have been characterized by bold, unilateral actions. These moves have sent ripples of uncertainty across continents. Allies and adversaries alike are scrambling to understand the new rules of engagement. The world watches, wondering if this new dawn is one of American renewal or global disarray. The early signs point towards a period of significant turbulence and recalibration. The relationship between Washington and Beijing quickly became a central theater of conflict. President Trump wasted no time in reigniting his confrontational stance towards China. New tariffs were imposed. The justifications were familiar unfair trade practices and pressing national security concerns. Chinese technology companies in particular found themselves in the crosshairs once more. These economic measures were not mere posturing. They represented a fundamental challenge to the existing global trade architecture. The administration signaled its intent to decouple, at least partially, the American economy from China's manufacturing and technological might. In a stark March 2025 press briefing, Trump laid down his gauntlet. China will no longer be allowed to manipulate American interests, he declared. We're bringing jobs and power back to the U.S. This rhetoric resonated with his domestic base. It also set a collision course with Beijing. The Chinese leadership under Xi Jinping is equally determined to assert its nation's global standing. They view American actions as attempts to contain China's rightful rise. The stage was thus set for a protracted and potentially dangerous period of geopolitical rivalry. Beijing's response was swift and predictable. Retaliatory economic countermeasures were announced. China also visibly increased its military presence in the contested South China Sea. The standoff is not just about tariffs or territory, it is about the future global hierarchy. President Trump's approach to the Middle East in 2025 has been a whirlwind of high-stakes deal-making and assertive posturing. His administration quickly embarked on a significant tour of key Gulf states. Visits to Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Qatar were central to this strategy. These were not mere diplomatic courtesy calls. They were transactional engagements, focused on securing vast economic commitments. Reports indicate that nearly $2 trillion in such commitments were pledged. This staggering sum underscores the economic leverage the U.S. continues to wield. A key component of these economic agreements involved advanced semiconductor deals. This highlights a strategic pivot. The administration is clearly focused on securing supply chains and technological supremacy. The Gulf states, for their part, seem willing to engage on these terms. Saudi Arabia is emphasizing its economic power. The UAE is focused on economic diversification and trade. Qatar continues its delicate balancing act, hosting the largest U.S. military base in the region while maintaining other ties. Interestingly, amidst this flurry of economic activity, sanctions on Syria were reportedly lifted. The rationale and implications of this move are still being analyzed. It could signal a broader reassessment of U.S. objectives in the Syrian conflict. While engaging deeply with the U.S., these Gulf countries are also visibly strengthening ties with other major powers, notably China and India. The Middle East chessboard is being actively rearranged. The complexities of the Middle East were further highlighted by renewed tensions with Iraq. In February 2025, President Trump publicly accused the Iraqi leadership of harboring anti-American extremists. This provocative claim immediately strained relations. It set a confrontational tone that harked back to more turbulent periods in U.S.-Iraqi history. The accusations were not followed by quiet diplomacy. Instead, the Trump administration moved quickly to impose sanctions on Iraq. It also threatened to cut off vital military support if Baghdad didn't take decisive action to clean up its government. Iraqi President Zaid al-Rubaiyeh offered a firm public response. "We will not be bullied by American threats," he stated. "Iraq is sovereign." This declaration captured the mood of defiance among many in the Iraqi political establishment. The U.S. demands place the Iraqi government in an incredibly difficult position. It relies on American support in its ongoing fight against extremist remnants. Yet it must also navigate a complex domestic political scene where anti-American sentiment can be easily inflamed. The situation on the ground in Iraq became visibly more volatile. Protests erupted in Baghdad and other cities. The aggressive U.S. posture towards Iraq in early 2025 has created a new focal point of instability. Section 5, African Crossroads, Burkina Faso's Defiance and Shifting Sands. The Trump administration's transactional approach to foreign policy faced a notable test in Africa. The West African nation of Burkina Faso became an unexpected symbol of resistance to American overtures. President Trump offered the country a seemingly attractive deal. It involved a package of weapons and security infrastructure. In exchange, the United States sought permission to establish a military base on Burkinabe soil. Such bases are prized strategic assets. The offer was classic Trump, a direct quid pro quo arrangement. However, President Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso delivered a stunning and unequivocal rejection. In a televised national address he declared, "Africa will not be a pawn. We refuse to let foreign powers dictate our future." This powerful statement resonated far beyond Burkina Faso's borders. It tapped into a growing sentiment across the African continent for greater sovereignty and self-determination. The United States' response was swift and punitive. President Trump, angered by the public rebuke, moved to cancel foreign aid to Burkina Faso. Consequently, Burkina Faso began to visibly strengthen its ties with China and Russia. The sands are indeed shifting across the continent. Section 6, the Kremlin connection, Putin, Trump, and the NATO question. The early months of 2025 also saw renewed focus on the complex relationship between President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin. Secret intelligence leaks suggested that Putin had requested a private meeting with Trump. This development immediately set alarm bells ringing in many Western capitals. The nature of the Trump-Putin dynamic has long been a subject of intense speculation and concern. Any direct engagement between the two leaders, especially one shrouded in secrecy, is bound to attract scrutiny. The meeting reportedly took place in Geneva under exceptionally tight secrecy. No press was allowed. The official agenda was vague, but sources indicated the discussion centered on Eastern Europe and the contentious issue of NATO expansion. Putin has long viewed NATO's eastward growth as a direct threat to Russia's security interests. Trump, on the other hand, has historically sent mixed signals regarding the alliance. Following the Geneva meeting, President Trump offered a characteristically brief and upbeat assessment via social media. He tweeted, "We had a fantastic talk. Strong leadership respects strong leadership." This comment did little to assuage concerns. Intelligence insiders quickly voiced warnings. They cautioned that Putin might be attempting to exploit the meeting to destabilize NATO further. The Geneva meeting, therefore, remains a significant and unsettling event. It highlights the potential for personal diplomacy between these two leaders to reshape geopolitical realities. Section 7. Allied Anxieties, Europe's Unease in the America First Era. The Resurgence of Trump's America. First foreign policy has predictably sent waves of anxiety across Europe. Traditional American allies, accustomed to decades of close transatlantic cooperation, found themselves once again grappling with an unpredictable partner. The emphasis on unilateralism, the questioning of established alliances, and the transactional nature of Trump's diplomacy have collectively eroded trust. European leaders have openly expressed their frustration. They see the U.S. turning inward, or at least prioritizing narrow national interests over collective security and shared democratic values. French President Emmanuel Dupont articulated this growing unease quite starkly. "We cannot trust an America that acts alone," she stated. "This sentiment is not confined to Paris. Across the continent from Berlin to Brussels, there is a palpable sense of concern. European nations are being forced to reconsider their own strategic postures. The reliability of the U.S. security guarantee, once taken for granted, is now openly debated. This has accelerated discussions about European strategic autonomy. The implications for the transatlantic relationship are profound. What was once a cornerstone of global stability now appears increasingly strained and transactional." Trump's approach often involves public criticism of allies, demands for increased financial contributions, and a willingness to link security cooperation to trade disputes. This creates an environment of uncertainty and resentment. The unease in Europe is not just about Trump. It is about the future of Western solidarity in an increasingly challenging world. Section 8. Economic tremors and domestic tides, markets and mandates. The unpredictable nature of President Trump's foreign policy pronouncements and actions has had a noticeable impact on global financial markets. Throughout the early months of 2025, world markets have exhibited increased volatility. Investors who crave stability and predictability have grown nervous. Sudden tariff announcements, geopolitical saber-rattling, or unexpected shifts in diplomatic relations can send shockwaves through stock exchanges and currency markets. This nervousness is not just a matter of sentiment, it has real-world consequences for global trade flows, investment decisions, and ultimately, economic growth across nations. The America First agenda, with its potential for trade disputes and disruptions to established supply chains, contributes significantly to this economic uncertainty. While the administration argues its policies are designed to benefit the U.S. economy in the long run, the short to medium-term effects often include heightened risk and reluctance from businesses to make significant capital expenditures. International corporations, in particular, find themselves navigating a more complex and fragmented global economic landscape. Yet in stark contrast to the anxieties in international financial circles and foreign capitals, President Trump's approval ratings have reportedly surged among his domestic base. His supporters appear to embrace the assertive strongman posture on the world stage. The rhetoric of bringing jobs back and challenging perceived unfair practices by other nations resonates deeply with a significant segment of the American electorate. This domestic political reality is crucial. It provides Trump with a strong mandate, in his view, to continue pursuing his disruptive foreign and economic policies. This feedback loop makes it less likely that he will moderate his stance in response to external pressure. The economic tremors felt globally may be seen by his administration as necessary side effects of a much-needed rebalancing of global power and economic relationships. Section 9. Redefining the world stage legacy and the path ahead. The actions of the Trump administration in 2025 are undeniably reshaping the international order. We are witnessing a deliberate and accelerated shift away from the multilateralism that characterized much of the post-Second World War era. In its place, a preference for bilateral, often highly personalized, transactional deals is emerging. This approach prioritizes immediate measurable gains for the United States. The global chessboard, as it were, is being actively reset, with new rules and new power dynamics coming into play. This redefinition is not occurring in a vacuum. It taps into and perhaps amplifies a global rise in nationalist sentiments. The America First doctrine finds echoes in other nations where leaders are prioritizing sovereignty and national interest above collective international endeavors. This trend challenges the very foundations of global governance institutions. The result is a more fragmented and competitive international environment. Alliances are becoming more fluid, and the pursuit of narrow self-interest can, at times, overshadow the need for cooperative solutions to global challenges. Looking ahead, the path is likely to be one of continued disruption and realignment. The bold moves undertaken by the Trump administration in its early months signal a sustained period of geopolitical flux. Nations will continue to adapt, forming new alliances of convenience, hedging their bets, and seeking to navigate an environment where the actions of the world's leading superpower are less predictable. Uncertainty remains the dominant theme on the global stage.